In today's video, traders, I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite price action entry setups. Let's talk about it. Let's get into it right now. Hello traders, and welcome back to another one of my videos. Today I'm going to be talking about, again, one of my favorite price action entries and going to be breaking it down piece by piece, as well as sharing some examples and some past trades that I've actually taken using this strategy technique. So without further ado, I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show it on the board so that we can get an illustrated version of what's going on with this particular trading strategy, and then we're going to dive into some examples. Make sure you stay tuned to the end of this video, and if you're new to my channel, make sure you subscribe down below for more trading related content. And also give this video a thumbs up. It does definitely help me out. Let's go ahead and take it to the board. All right, traders, so we're here on the board taking a look at the illustrated version of this price action entry point that I'm talking about. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Now, remember, we're going to be taking a look at some real examples in a second, but I do want to kind of just illustrate the point so that you guys can see and we can explain it before actually looking at some examples. So what we're going to be looking for with this particular entry that I do like is we're looking for some sort of break of a significant structure. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, again, let's say that we have price moving kind of in a range here, right? And so price is moving here, kind of finding resistance in this area along the top. Now, excuse my drawing, it's not quite perfect, but I'm going for it, right? So with this said, we have kind of a resistance point here, we have a resistance point here. Price is kind of channeling to the left, to the right, just kind of staying sideways. Now, what we're looking for with this particular entry is we're looking to take advantage of a change in that market sentiment. Now, again, we kind of identified that here, as well as here, we had seller resistance pushing price down. This was a point of resistance in this market. Now, what we're looking for with this particular entry style is we're looking to see price significantly break that level of resistance for a potential long trade. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's say that the next thing we see with this is a significant breakout, right? We break that structure that we just identified as resistance. Well, price actually exceeds sellers here and buyers take control of this market, pushing price past that level of resistance. Now, the trade opportunity, guys, the next step here is where we really look to get things going. We look to join in at an interesting level or a pullback of that same level that just got broken. So next we see price pull back to that level here in this market. And we're looking to potentially join into the trade on that pullback. That's exactly what we're going to be looking for on the chart. You can see, hopefully you can see that. Maybe if I move over here, it might be a little easier. Again, we've broken that significant level of resistance right here, right? And price broke through, found buyer support as price pushed up higher, pulled back to that area, and we potentially want to get long on a pullback to that structure. Again, hopefully that makes more sense. Let's go ahead and dive into some actual examples on the chart. So now that we've taken a look at kind of the breakdown of the illustration of this kind of strategy that we're looking to do, let's go ahead and take a look at some actual chart examples so that we can see how this might actually look on the charts. Now, what you'll notice here at the bottom is I do have an RSI printed on the screen. That's going to come into play. So if you're wondering about that, stay tuned. We're going to get into that in just a second. So let's go ahead and identify exactly what we just talked about on the chart there, or on the board there. We saw a concept of kind of a broken level of resistance potentially becoming a level of support. Well, let's see if we can find one in this actual chart. Now, I have pulled up the USD Canadian 4-hour chart. Now, the reason I pull this up is because this is actually a trade that I took in the VIP team. By the way, if you want to follow my trading signals, I do offer them, as well as analysis on more down below in the link. Or in the description, there's a link to join our VIP team if you're interested in that. But again, this is a trade that we've caught on USD CAD. Very nice little pullback trade here, and exactly kind of the concept that we just got done explaining. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So what we can see here is if I highlight using this shape here, if I highlight kind of this structure here, what you notice about this level here, if I zoom in just a little bit, is that price was rebounding off of this level quite a few times. Now, similar scenarios were on the bottom, right? We did have buyer support down in this area. If I go ahead and make that green, might actually be a little more helpful. So we do have kind of a channel going on in this market. Now this is key because we're identifying, again, remember when we were just illustrating on the board, we were talking about a market condition where price is kind of chopping back and forth. We have sellers along the top, we have buyers down at the bottom, and we overall kind of have a sideways or channeling market condition. Now that is key in setting up for that trade. Why? Well, price is consolidating. Buyers and sellers are at a standstill. They're kind of fighting back and forth about which way price is going to go next, and we as market participants are looking for some sort of confirmation or some sort of significant break of that structure and looking to get in at a calculated pullback. So what we see here is, again, we see sellers up here, buyers down here. As price comes down into this area, you can see we did get a very significant rally from those lows, and similarly on the top we did have sellers stepping into this market and really pushing price down. Now what's interesting, however, though, is as a trader of this, you could be trading this sideways, but this particular trading strategy today is actually kind of a breakout and retest strategy. Now you may have heard this, and it'll make more sense as we do kind of clarify with this example that we were just talking about on the chart or on the board. We're going to now take a look at a chart example. Again, this was a trade that I did take in the VIP team in the live room. Now what you could see here is that next what we see is price did finally break that structure. Remember what we just got done explaining is that in this pattern we're looking for price to significantly break up or down from this particular channel of kind of congestion or consolidation in the market. So we did get a significant break to the long side here. Price did rally, buyers stepped in and pushed this price higher. But what we saw next is interesting. Now if I zoom back out just for a second here, if I just kind of zoom back out and extend this, what you can start to see, guys, is that we did get an interesting little story play out here on this particular trade. So what you can see, if we pull up our, let's see if I get a nice little, that'll work right there. Now what you can see, guys, is if I get my sketch pad out here again, remember we just talked about how price was being rejected in this area, but then came along the bulls and they kind of screwed up that system, right? They actually broke out of this channel. Buyers rallied and pushed price higher. But next, we actually saw something interesting, and this is where this particular trading setup, which is one of my bread and butter favorite trading setups, comes into play. Price starts to fall back down. Oftentimes, I say this again and again on my channel, price likes to retest levels that it has recently left to find significant buyer structure or support, kind of to push price on and kind of refuel. It's like a car. A car needs to stop and get gas every once in a while. Same with a trend. A trend needs to pull back, get some gas, and continue on with the next move. And that's exactly what we saw. And not only that, we actually found a really calculated entry to do this on the long side. You can see price did come down. And again, this is a trade that I traded in the live room with VIP members. You can see that right around here would have been a fantastic pullback and buy position. Again, price did rally very nicely from there. One more thing, guys, here about this particular trade that I did want to mention. I did briefly say that I was going to touch on the RSI. The RSI, people have been asking me recently, Nick, do you use any sort of indicators? And usually most of my trading is price action based, but I do like to mix in indicators, and one of my personal favorite indicators is the RSI. So I did want to add on to this particular trading strategy and mention that I like to use the RSI to help me find overbought or oversold markets. Now, of course, the RSI is not going to be a magical money printing machine where anytime it prints oversold, it's going to go up, or overbought, it's going to go down, but it is a tool that helps me identify when a market may be kind of looking stretched. So I did want to add on to the previous statement about kind of this pullback level. We did get a nice printed message here. You can see if you see right there, price was looking oversold on the RSI. Now, I do want to also be transparent and say that what I like with the RSI is personally, I'll either be looking at a 7-period RSI if I'm trading kind of a little bit longer term, and sometimes I'll even use a 4-period RSI. I do have a video on RSI. If you would like to check that out, maybe I'll go ahead and link that here in the video. Now, hopefully that did make sense. If it didn't, I don't want you guys to worry, because we're going to go into another example here, this time on the bear side. Now, this is another trade that I took, except it's flipped, and this time we're going to be going short and taking a look at a short example. Okay, so now that we've taken a look at a long example, let's talk quickly about a short example and how you could take advantage of this sort of setup on the short side. Now, what you can see here is I am still on USD CAD. I actually caught this trade as well in the VIP team. This was one of our shorts that worked out really nicely nicely here on the currency pair USD CAD. Now, what you'll probably be able to see if you've seen this pattern quite a bit, you'll be able to spot this pretty quickly. Now, if I do the similar structure stuff that I did last time, right, I identify a kind of market environment where price has been in a kind of sideways choppy market environment, right? Again, price kind of traveling back and forth here along the top and here across the bottom. Now, if I make this light green, you can see that back here, we identified this area here. Before this sort of stuff happened, what you can see is price oscillating between this level of resistance here, right? We had sellers in this area and we had buyers down below, right? So buyers and sellers active in this area. You can see as price came in here, we did find selling resistance. We found buyers in this area and sellers pretty active up in this area. So we do kind of have that sideways market environment that we're looking for to set up this trading potential. Now, what we see next is we see a breakdown of that structure. You can see sellers became strong in this area. We saw a very nice kind of rollover of this market as sellers really did get strong in this area and actually broke through that level of support to break low. Now that we've broken that structure, this is where we look to potentially get involved in that breakout, but we want to wait for a breakout and then a retest, right? So as price starts to come back up, this is where we potentially get interested. So as potential sellers here, we're looking to get involved if price can come up into our area. You can see price did rally up into this area and we caught this trade in the VIP team. We kind of sold into this big green bar here. And what you can see if I scroll over just a little bit is price ultimately did roll over very nicely and we caught a nice trade there on USD CAD. Now, what I want to say here before I go on is how could you actually trade this? What kind of stuff, or what kind of targets, what kind of exits, what can you use to actually realistically take trades using this sort of setup? Now, if you like this setup and this fits your criteria, then I've got some methods that you can use to enter and exit this with a take profit and a standard stop loss. So what you could do here, just kind of some ideas here. Again, up to you how you ultimately decide to trade this, or if you trade this at all. But we've identified, remember, some high probability pivotal points in the market where price is very likely to respond to excess in demand or excess in supply, buyers or sellers defending their key levels. So with that said, in this particular setup, let's say that we entered right around this area. Let's just say we entered right around the middle of this zone. Let's say that this is our short position, because remember, we're looking to join the move on a calculated pullback. So let's go ahead and make this blue. This is our short position entry. Well, one particular way that I personally like to use this is I like to target the recent low. So for an example, in this particular level, we're going to look to get out of the trade right around here. At least if you're using, one take profit, you could use this. If you're using multiple take profits, you could potentially go for more of that. You could use a Fibonacci extension. If you don't know about Fibonacci extensions, they're a great tool to look for potential targets, very, very calculated levels. Now, with that said, if price decides to roll over, we could have gotten out around here. We'll go ahead and make that green just for key, kind of for a key point here. We're looking for a potential take profit down on the lows. That's just kind of a standard, but feel free to play around with that if you'd like to change it. Now, what you can do here is you have a couple options. Of course, you could, if you're just, trying to stay standard, you could look to just get out along a stop loss kind of in the middle of this, this range that we did identify. Because remember, that was part of our key points in entry. We're looking for that significant kind of trading range, that powerful congestion between buyers and sellers where price is loading up, where things are getting big and tight, and buyers and sellers are both looking to take advantage of which way the market's going to go next. Finally, we did see that break lower and we retested that area. This is where we're potentially entering, but let's talk about that stop loss. One option that you have, at least how I like to potentially trade these sorts of setups, if I'm going to use a stop loss with them, is I'd like to kind of put this area here, I'll make it red, this as a potential stop out. So if price does decide to rally further, then probably it's going to go back to ranging, and we don't want to be in this ranging market. We're looking for a breakout, retest, and continuation to the short side. So again, we're looking for price to roll over relatively quickly. Otherwise, we're probably not interested in the trade. This gives you a nice 2.5 to 1 in terms of reward to risk, which is real nice. A lot of times traders want to see that. You could even go for, again, using those Fibonacci extensions, something further, might come out to something like this as your target, which gives gives you a nice 3, maybe even 4 to 1, depending on how you like to trade. Again, the further away you put your target, usually the less likelihood of success. So if it kind of depends, how often do you want to win? How often do you want to lose? If you put your target too far away, you run the risk of taking, many losses in a row, as price is going to be, in this particular case, it would have worked out great. And in fact, we took a nice take profit here in the VIP room. But again, kind of comes down to the trade, the actual setup, and how things go. Now, one other option I do want to mention for your stop loss. This is completely something that you can play around with. Feel free to do it in your own due diligence, back test these, see how you trade this particular pattern, how you like to use it. But if you also want to, one other way that I know people will do is to put it above the recent high, or even just around that recent high. Kind of as an option there. Now, this does give you a little bit less of a nice risk to reward, but again, if you're using a larger take profit, this can actually also be a nice little setup too. Again, using Fibonacci extensions, significant levels of price action, support and resistance, all of those sort of things can help you find potential targets as well as potential stop losses. Another thing that you could do if you do look for particular stop loss styles is you could, of course, use price action to your advantage. So if you do see something significant, let's say, you can see we kind of had some consolidation here, you could just eyeball it and kind of say, above this significant level here, I'm looking to get out of the trade. Kind of using price action as a way to exit your trade, as well as in this case, entering the trade. Guys, I hope you got something out of this video. This is one of my favorite personal trading strategy setups. I love break and retest entries. It can be a fantastic way to make some really high probability entries in the market. It can be a very accurate way to get involved with a particular trade. If you did enjoy this video, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and check out some of my other videos. I've got a ton of stuff for you, and I hope you take some time and also subscribe to the channel and hang out with us in the future. Thanks so much, and we'll catch you next time.